USP program and drones. From 2012 to 2023, I worked in naval intelligence, focusing on advanced underwater detection systems as part of an unidentified submerged phenomena program. Our work involved close collaboration with the DoD and leading defense contractors, whose names you can likely guess. The program's objective was to investigate anomalous underwater activity in specific areas of interest. My recruitment came after earning a PhD in oceanographic engineering, and my role was to analyze sensor data and identify patterns in these phenomena. I will keep this as concise as possible. I'd like to start by saying that the drones we've been seeing aren't US experiments, Chinese tech, or extraterrestrial. The objects we are seeing are from Earth, and while we are not entirely sure what they are, we know where they come from. The objects that we see emerge from subterranean and submarine exit points. During my time in the USP program, my team analyzed data from nuclear subfleets equipped with next-gen quantum sonar arrays. These tracked objects emerging from and returning to depths far below our sub's crush depth, about 2,400 feet. Simply put, their movement defied physics. I'm talking about vertical ascents and descents at 75 to 90 degrees with constant velocity, no cavitation, and no acoustic signature. By 2014, we identified consistent emergence points that we called threshold points. These were not random. Clusters of these objects always seem to emerge in the Puerto Rico Trench, off California's continental shelf, and the East Pacific Rise. The objects' physical properties are quite honestly terrifying, as they can physically alter their structure and manipulate electromagnetic fields to mimic real aircraft, replicating their shape, motion, and reflective properties. However, our quantum sonar arrays consistently revealed their true, unchanging forms, suggesting the transformation is either superficial or operates by mechanisms we do not yet understand. You would not believe how much activity has ramped up over the past 2 years. By mid-2023, the whole situation got so tense that my access to key data was locked down almost overnight. It was not subtle. My higher-ups were clearly scared. Everything became need to know, and apparently, I did not need to know anymore. When they started pulling senior analysts from the program and stonewalling me from anything remotely relevant, it was obvious the walls were closing in. That's when I decided that it was time to leave. The recent wave of whistleblowers you'll be seeing, and incidents like the Cybertruck bomber, are controlled disclosure. It's all a part of a calculated effort to muddy the waters and keep people chasing shadows while something much bigger is unfolding. These objects are not extraterrestrial, and they are not some top-secret military tech. Our theory is that they have been here far longer than we have, and whatever they are doing, it's ramping up fast. Our final pattern analysis before the data lockdown showed an exponential increase in emergence events. The trend was not just alarming, it pointed toward a critical threshold. Also, we are entirely certain that they aren't just buzzing around aimlessly. They are systematically mapping and surveying infrastructure, military installations, population hubs. They are covering everything, and they are doing it while blending in perfectly. They could look like a drone, an airliner, or who knows what else, but under the surface, they are something entirely different. Did your office work with the NOAA during all of this? Yes, we had ongoing collaborations with PMEL, particularly their ocean exploration program. They provided data and environmental monitoring that helped us establish baseline acoustic signatures to filter out natural phenomena. They were a pain in the ass. Any activity near Khalat Yam. If you're referring to Kiryat Yam, I'm not sure about the spelling you used. We did not have any direct monitoring stations in the Mediterranean. At least, I was never aware of these and only focused on the areas I already mentioned. The Mediterranean's average depth of about 1,500 meters does not provide the conditions that we typically associated with the Atlantic threshold points. If Euros and Africans see these objects, it's because they went from the Atlantic threshold points, particularly from the Puerto Rico Trench vector, and moved eastward across the ocean. What were the true forms you saw on sonar? We consistently observed two configurations. The most common was an oblong spheroid, exactly like the tic-tac shape that gets thrown around a lot. The other form was perfectly spherical, usually 5 to 8 meters in diameter. Regardless of what they appeared to be visually, drones, aircraft, etc., the quantum acoustic signature always showed me one of these two base forms. The sphere configuration was more common during deep water operations, while the tic-tac shape was prevalent during surface-to-air transitions. Any biological effects reported near the exit points, changes in sea life behavior. Marine life does not notice these things. Our bio team used to joke about this. It's pretty wild when you think about it. Even our quietest subs send marine life scattering, but these objects might as well be part of the coral. I gave the general timeline, my role, and my background. The locations and tech specifications I mentioned are verifiable by anyone with any proper knowledge. I'd suggest looking at the public NOAA bathymetric data for the threshold points that I mentioned. Pay attention to anomalous readings around the Puerto Rico Trench's western slope, particularly between 2020 to 2022. The data is public. They just don't advertise what they are actually recording. I am not going to dox myself further or drop specific details that could identify people close to me. I am not reading all of that. I already know that they are ancient alien probes and they can replicate itself. That is the only explanation that makes sense. An advanced civilization will inevitably send probes all over the universe to search for stuff, and, elaborating on this, their goal is to find these interesting planets with resources or life support conditions and report back to the nearest outpost. So, they've sent a probe back with a report thousands of years ago, and now their goal is just to monitor and protect the planet and its resources until more probes and perhaps even NHI life forms arrive here. If we are about to nuke the planet down, they will interfere. Ma'e coming for the resources. This type of fear-mongering is so stupid. It is just us projecting our own history on alien invaders to possibly construct a threat narrative. The universe is littered with all types of resources that an advanced civilization might need on desolate worlds and asteroids. Why come to our cosmic backwater that is inhabited by a bunch of smart monkeys that you will have to deal with? Summer 2015. Puerto Rico shelf emergence of small fast unit that flew over East US. This very much tracks. The Pentagon videos they confirmed in 2020 were from that 2014 to 2015 activity spike. It was cool seeing them finally acknowledge the footage that we've been analyzing years before. The release of those videos sparked huge internal fights. You had some officials pushing for disclosure, other branches fighting to keep everything classified, and some just freelancing their own agenda. My team thought we were finally getting somewhere, but instead, it just exposed how fractured the whole system is. Different offices either fighting over control or actively undermining each other. We are cooked. Any idea why they are putting small devices into people? The implant phenomenon is real. Never heard anyone talk about this. There is no evidence to suggest they aren't from our planet, but you are not entirely wrong. These objects show specific interest in our infrastructure and population centers. We are certain they are mapping human activity specifically, and not just general planetary resources. What's going on in NJ is unprecedented. Everything else is pure speculation. Do you think it could be related to Earth's pole shift? No. The Earth's magnetic pole shift is a very slow-moving compass needle. We actually studied this possibility extensively because the objects that we tracked could manipulate electromagnetic fields. Imagine you're watching birds migrate. If they were following Earth's magnetic field, like birds actually do, you'd see gradual changes in their patterns, matching the pole's movement. But these objects follow completely different rules. They created their own magnetic disturbances, kind of like how a magnet can temporarily override your compass. Why the fuck would these things even care about us now if they are some ancient Earth species? Our theory was that they are tired of us fucking with their shit, quite honestly. We always assumed they are peaceful, or else humanity would not have thrived for this long. However, we've basically industrialized every corner of their native environment. Deep sea mining, submarine cables, sonar networks, oil rigs. We are literally building infrastructure right on top of their threshold points. Plus, our self-destructive behavior, nukes, puts them at high risk. That's why there's been so much more activity in the last 80 years. What is the point of mimicking planes? They clearly don't want direct interaction with us, and mimicking seems to be an evasion tactic. Numbers? By late 2022, we hit around 40 emergencies per month. Back in 2014, only 10 to 20, but the worst part was not the numbers. It was seeing multiple threshold points activate at once, which had never happened before. Last projection before I lost access showed 100 plus monthly events by the end of 2023. Given what is happening now, especially in NJ, we are probably looking at 10 plus events daily, way beyond anything we modeled. Did any other nations track this shit? Of course. That's actually part of why keeping this contained is impossible. Russian deep-sea research vessels were all over the East Pacific rise threshold points. They have better deep water capabilities than most people realize. The Chinese aren't dumb to this either. The funny part is, we'd occasionally get sanitized intelligence reports of them tracking the exact same phenomena, but everyone played dumb in international waters. Picture these three countries all following the same objects while pretending they're just doing routine patrols. It is ridiculous. The Chinese, especially, ramped up their deep-sea monitoring after 2019. Look up their underwater sensor network expansion. If you are asking for a specific date, I can't give you one. That is not how it works. Our model showed emergence events increasing exponentially, but we lost access to the data before pinpointing when it could peak, and that prediction could be incorrect. What I can tell you is that the rate of increase we were seeing by mid-2023 was well beyond our worst-case projections from 2019. Think of it like watching a pot about to boil. You can see the bubbles forming faster and faster, but you can't predict the exact moment it will boil over. All I know is we're seeing way more activity now than any of our models ever predicted we would, and nobody knows their end goal. In all of the data we collected, there wasn't a single aggressive action. They are capable of incredible things, but they've never shown hostile intent. If they wanted violence, we would not stand a chance. Something that can alter their structure, manipulate electromagnetic fields, and move through water like it's air. We would be done in hours. What we observed was more like territorial behavior, like they're responding to us, encroaching on their space. They are aware of our nuclear capabilities. That is probably humanity's only real deterrent. I guess they understand that any overt action risks a nuclear response from us that would poison their environment as much as ours. But that is just my analysis based on the data. I am not going to pretend I know their intentions. Threshold points aren't physical structures or holes. That's what made them hard to study. They are more like zones where normal physics starts acting up. UUVs could get within about 600 meters before their navigation systems would start going haywire. Compasses spinning, depth sensors showing impossible readings, that sort of thing. Lost quite a few Remus units trying to get closer. The best imagery we got was from multi-beam sonar mapping. You'd see these perfectly circular areas, maybe 50 meters in diameter, where the return signals just did not make sense. Like, the bathymeter would show normal seafloor topology, then this completely smooth disk where all of our instruments failed to get coherent readings, almost like a blind spot in the data. Who do you find to be the most credible and genuine? Most of them are working with fragments of information, and some are definitely spinning narratives for profit or attention. The ones talking about bodies, exotic materials, and crash retrievals are missing the point entirely. These things don't crash. There are no retrievals, lol. What if they can also mimic humans and other things? One of our techs actually had this running joke about our branch director being one of them because the guy never seemed to blink and had this weird way of moving. We never saw any evidence that they could mimic anything except aircraft. Not saying they couldn't do different things, they probably can, but signatures were always consistent with those two forms I mentioned, the sphere and tic-tac shapes. Again, fragments of info are out there, so is the reality of what's happening. It's right in front of everyone. People just keep looking for aliens when they should be looking elsewhere. That is all. I feel like at any second, The entire planet could be swarmed with billions of these things and be wiped out in a second. What the hell else would they be planning? Also, what's the possibility there's been ET contact and this is something totally different as well? I found some of the crash retrieval stories to seem believable. Does this mean that the guy who said that creatures live in these plasma voids under the ocean was not LARPing? I forget what he called the substance that they lived inside, but he said it occurred under great pressures, and they've lived in these plasma oceans underneath us for thousands of years. I forget what people called them, but it's something like Dobbelnay. He said we developed nukes, which is tech they did not have, and they developed anti-gravity, and they wanted us to stop messing with their ecosystem. That's why they emerged, and a huge war is brewing, but they agreed to peace for a few decades with them. Presumably, they are humanoid, but with aquatic features. My schizo sense went off when I saw deleted links, Lamau. You're fine. And yeah, I agree, dude. I interacted with this thread very early and asked about NOAA, because guess what? There was an underwater LARP, well before the underwater-based LARP. The OG Underwater Aliens LARP is the NOAA Mermaids Reddit post from like 2018 or some shit, and I base all of my underwater alien LARP off of that. They claim they witnessed 10-foot tall entity that could basically move through the water at any speed. They claim that they were cloaked in something that resembles elemental mercury. They could move in any direction, as if they weren't encompassed by water. It resembled high FPS footage. These things were bouncing around, and their craft did too. It's as if they are operating off of different laws of physics, or something that allows them to generate these different fields. No one wants to talk about the NOAA Mermaid post. It's like they want it buried, so they can craft LARP to contain and bury it. Whoa, that reminds me a bit of the Russian divers that came into contact with some alien beings as well. Is it the same story? No, you are referencing the incident that occurred at Lake Baikal, which is another underwater alien rabbit hole that is connected to all of this. The incident you were referring to basically claims they interacted with underwater entity, and they literally got turned to stone, Medusa style. I know exactly what you are referencing, and it is another piece of the puzzle. Lake Baikal, Lake Tahoe, these fuckers are not just operating in the ocean. They know what they are doing. Don't even get me started on the Tahoe Deep YouTube channel that I still think about every day. When you piece it all together, it's so hard to ignore it. We are constantly given half-truths, and it's literally up to the individual to piece it together. They want you confused and incapable. Fuck that shit. If you saw the data we saw, that feeling of dread will be in your head 24/7, but eventually, you just learn to live with this reality. There is not much we can do. Whether other phenomena exist alongside what I saw is outside my area of expertise, but I personally doubt it. Never heard of such a theory. The objects we tracked were solid, structured craft with forms under quantum sonar. As for humanoid entities, I never saw evidence of that. The objects showed signs of intelligence in their behavior patterns, but we never got close enough to determine who or what was operating them. Speculation about their true nature was heavily discouraged in the program. Our team joked about it here and there, but never around the higher-ups. We did our job, and that was it. I will remain within what I can verify through our program's data and what I saw. Remote viewing insights are interesting, but my focus was on hard sensor data and verifiable patterns. I am unaware of further details. I am not dismissive. I'm just telling you what I saw and researched for years. I cannot and will not confirm or deny things that I am unsure about. I will only tell my side of the story and conclusions of theories my team and I reached or considered. Bet Sphere never came up in any serious discussions in our program. Foo Fighters, quite relevant. Our analysis of historical documentation from World War II pilots, combined with our modern data and understanding of the objects, suggests they were encountering early examples of the same mimicry behavior. I stand on the data I saw. It would be cool to say that they are interdimensional demons or gray aliens from Neptune, but I don't know. We can't determine who is constructing them, and labeling them as useless. All I can say with honesty is the sophistication of the objects implies an advanced tech civilization, but I've heard all types of theories from time travel to super AI, but again, theorizing their origin was not my objective, and we would get in trouble if we delved too deep into that. There are no indications for extraterrestrials. These things are not leaving Earth. in an outer suburb of a main city. Passing through town, stop at a local strip mall. Maybe there will be something to eat here. Car park is almost totally empty. Weird effect of all the empty concrete seems to take ages to walk to the entrance. Sliding doors are out of order. A yellowed sign says, use back door. Arrow points to a dilapidated door on the side of the building held open by a brick. Okay, lol. Enter through a short passage into the food court. Large open space with plenty of seating and faux plants, plaster pillars, etc. All the trappings of a thriving mall, except it's completely empty. No one at any of the tables, no one walking around. The shops are almost all closed. Those big rolled down metal grates covering the shop fronts. 2 of the food court stores appear to be open. A Turkish kebab place has its lights on, but I can't see anyone there or any activity. A sushi place with 1 or 2 scruffy looking items on display has a guy at the counter who notices me and smiles. Hi, how are you today? He says. Actually, he practically shouts it because I am standing at the far end of the food court, nowhere near him. Just smile back and don't reply. No longer hungry and getting a weird feeling from the place. Walk around some note of the mall. Notice rubbish on the floor and unkempt fenced off areas, including a stairwell to a lower floor that just goes into ceiling darkness. Reach a dead end where the rest of the mall is shut off with roll down grates. The background music is coming from a couple speakers in the food court only. From this distance, it's just a warped echo. There is a rustling in the blocked off stairwell. Turn in time to see a fuzzy shape, like bundled up rags, move quickly out of sight. Time to go. As I bolt out of there, I pass the sushi store, and the guy stares at me as I leave. As I went through the passage out into the car park, I was really jumpy. I heard footsteps somewhere behind me, and actually ran to my car. Later, I looked the place up, and it's a dead mall, with only a few shops open a couple days a week. I have not exaggerated the story, although I was probably unduly frightened. I got the impression something was not right there. My friends just found it funny, and said the food stores were probably drug fronts, and I am tempted to agree. The figure in the stairway seemed like a homeless person, most likely. So, nothing supernatural, but undoubtedly a creepy experience. Here is something that happened a month ago to me. I'd rather not share this, as I am afraid I might bring it back, but sharing is good for the mind, right? Friend back from tour in Germany. Plan a hike/hunt up in Vermont, right after Halloween. Head up to Burlington, hippie country, as east of there is pretty much wide open wilderness up to the Canadian border. We head out to Mount Mansfield with hunting and camping supplies. Should be a good week. First day/night is uneventful. We camp with no issues. Next time, while hiking through the woods, we come across an abandoned settlement in the middle of nowhere. Woods here are abnormally quiet. Even with snow on the ground, there is usually some noise. We find some plaques detailing this place's history, so we get somewhat comforted. Decide this is a good place to camp for the night, despite finding no deer for 2 days. That night, shit starts up. Buddy is staring into the woods away from the campfire around 6 p.m. He is real quiet, holding his rifle. Does not speak a word as the campfire crackles. Finally ask what's up. He does not answer, just points the barrel off into the tree line. We sit in silence for another hour or so, when I finally hear walking in the distance. Sounds human. We hear twigs and branches snapping, but given the terrain, it's not clear where it is. Friend finally speaks up, says he saw someone standing in the distance looking at us when we were building the campfire, then saw them hanging around while we ate dinner. He remarks that when he would camp and hike in Germany, the locals would always warn him of the witches that inhabited abandoned towns. Remarks that they said the night felt darker when they were around, even with a campfire. Realize I can't see the stars, nor really that much more, despite us having a roaring campfire. Fuck me, a witch? We basically stay up for a while longer, before agreeing to sleep in shifts. Whatever it is still walking around us like a predator. Morning comes. Walking stopped around midnight. We decide to leave the spot and head north towards the ski areas, hoping for more deer and less Blair Witch. An hour into the hike, we find an abandoned looking house in a small clearing. Bones everywhere. Looks like coil wolves are using the area as a lair, but no sign of them. We decide to investigate the house. We now realize this was a bad idea. Door is unlocked. We step in. Smells like incense and spices, like an Indian grocery store. First floor is pretty Spartan. Some broken furniture and rotted floorboards. Massive, rusted witch cauldron in the fireplace. Hear noise from the basement. We shoulder our rifles and stand back to back. Friend finds the basement door. It's shut. Could be a coy wolf stuck down there. We decide not to pursue the basement and get the fuck out of there. We bug out and leave the house behind. Photo I took never came out, and the GPS on it had all zeros, so fuck me. We move north some more. Still no deer and no noise. Decide to turn south and head back to truck. We have to camp one more night. Shit about to get bad, and we don't even know it. Build a fire. Friend makes a makeshift palisade using branches and fallen trees around campsite. Not overkill when we may have stumbled onto a witch's house. Everything is quiet until 7 p.m. No walking this time. Instead, we can hear birds. A lot of birds. Like an aviary everywhere. Wishing we brought energy drinks, because no way we are sleeping. We both begin to hear faint whispering now, like in the back of our ears. Ask Buddy if we should just walk the rest of the way. He responds no. She won't let us. Points rifle at trees east of fire. I don't see shit. Hear an obvious voice make a fake bird call in the other direction. I am freaked the fuck out. Ask Buddy if we should fire some rounds off. He says no. If they wanted to harm us, they could have. We need to be alert, as they could be fucking with us to scare us away. A fucking white wolf appears an hour later. Bird noises and whispers still going on it. I want to shoot, but it could be a witch. It sits by the campfire. Noises start to die down. What the fuck? After the silence returns, Wolf gets up and walks back into the woods. Neither of us sleep nor speak. In the morning, we book it to the truck and get the fuck out back to Burlington. No deer, just witches. Was the wolf part of the witches? I don't know. I have not talked about this with my buddy. I am fucking scared it followed me. I still remember this, like if it was yesterday. On God, I keep retelling. Nobody remembers it, only me. Be me, 4 years old, with mom and grandmother and also sister. Trip to Chuck E. Cheese, but before we go, mom and grandma have to run one simple errand. So they go to this building at a random plaza to drop off a post letter of some sort. While walking up the stairs, mind you, it's in a local plaza where stores and small companies for food and clothing shops are held there. We walk towards the corner of what seems to be a mini mall that is not indoors at all. Strange. The place was filled with these skeletons, all dressed in robes. Candles everywhere. Mind you, at the time, it wasn't even October, and the skeletons looked to be real. Maybe they were used for science class, or actually grave robbed. As we waited at the lobby room, there were small African American dolls sitting in shrines with cigar bottles of wine and machetes laying on top of them. Place was freaking me out, yet my mom and grandma did not care and made me shrug it off. So I feel nervous, yet bored at the same time. I wander off with my sister, and we both peeped through a window that said Botanica and saw what had to be people chanting as they behead a chicken to a stone idol or plate, I can't remember. 16 years pass. I saw my local news live claiming a report that that same mini-mall was under investigation for having a hidden church or cult for the religion Santeria or Voodoo. Over 200 animal sacrifices were held behind the back doors of the place. My question till this day is what was my mom and grandma doing there at the time?